Hey guys, Naz here with another video. In this video, I'll be giving you my brutally honest review of Persona 5 Royal. Before we get into the review, I just want to state this is my first time ever playing a Persona game, so if anything sounds like common knowledge to you, that's why. I've been playing the sister games of Persona with Shin Megami Tensei, but after the last two releases end up being meh, I decided to see what the hype was with Persona, and with that out the way, let's get into this, yeah? Before I go over the story, I just want to say the original soundtrack is such a bop. I remember starting this up and I had to stop the prologue as my hips involuntarily started rocking to the music. I found myself doing this throughout the game because the game has a very good soundtrack. And now we'll cover the story, since I'm sure that's what most of us play for. Without going into details that may spoil anything, the story starts 75% into the game, and as you play, you're recalling everything that leads up to that point. This was a fun and refreshing way to experience the story, and I really enjoyed it. The start introduced a lot of questions, and one that was always at the back of my mind until I caught up to where the game began. This did a wonderful job in making me constantly pay attention for any clues, and for the most part I was right with my speculation until the very end. Just like the lyrics to the last surprise, you won't see it coming. I was pleasantly surprised that the dark story carried over from Shin Megami Tensei to Persona. Instead of being focused on general entities and labeling them good or bad with the demons and angels, Persona zooms in and gives us relatable scenarios that I'm boldly gonna state that each of us can relate to at least one of them. The story writing in this game was so good, it legit made me mad and I wanted to punch the antagonist in the face. I was so emotionally invested in this game, and that's very rare for me. I'm a games play first kind of guy, and after 30 years of gaming, I have become desensitized to most plots in the RPG genre, but Persona 5 caught me by surprise. The voice acting in this game is phenomenal, and it helped immerse me. The cast poured their hearts into these lines as you could feel the anger, sorrow, and joy that they were going through. I found myself leaning towards a handful of confidants. Confidants are major story members that assist the protagonist. Each of these confidants have their own side story, which dives deeper into their backstory and their current compilations they're facing. This actually helped me change my opinion on a few of them, as they either originally came off as bland or not my cup of tea. I can't emphasize how good this was, and it only helped the main story. I want to come out and say this was originally my biggest gripe with the Persona series. Like I stated prior, I mostly care about gameplay, and I usually hate fluff sections of a game with the social aspects. But that's because all my prior experiences were bad. Persona 5 actually has a very solid side story with the confidants, and I admit I was more interested to see how these side stories resolve than getting back into combat. Now don't take that the wrong way, because the combat is amazing. While we're on combat, why don't we go over that? Just like Shin Megami Tensei, the enemies have 10 affinities, and most are weak to at least one. Exploiting this weakness does 40% more damage and gives you another turn, just like the classic press turn system. In Persona 5, however, this game mechanic is taking one step further with the baton pass system. This allows you to swap to another teammate to continue the pressure on your opponent. At first, this is used to give an ally a turn early if their agility is low, but as you progress through the game, Baton Pass now increases your damage and helps heal some HP and SP. This allowed for some very fun and quick combos in battle. Aside from elemental weakness, the game has technical damage. These reward you for afflicting the enemy with a status, since some enemies have no elemental weakness at all. This is another way to get a 40% damage increase on your foes, and if you play on Merciless like I did, then this gets multiplied by another 300%. I absolutely love this system, as you're thoroughly rewarded for being strategic with the status, unlike Shin Megami Tensei. Before we move on, there's one more layer to combat. If you knock down all enemies, you can then do an all-out attack. This happens when either you exploit a weakness or do technical damage. This is a neutral AoE attack, so it'll hit all enemies regardless of their resistance. If you don't want to do an all-out attack, then during a knockdown you can try recruiting a persona to your team, ask for money, or an item. I mostly use this feature to get a bunch of money and item. When it comes to recruiting personas, I like having the enemy beg for mercy, like they sometimes do in Shin Megami Tensei. To my surprise, that is more common in this game, and it made me very happy. Before I forget, let's talk about the Velvet Room while we're on recruiting new personas. Unlike our teammates, we get to change our persona, and the Velvet Room is our friend. You can fuse two personas you acquired throughout negotiations or begging. As you progress further into the game, you'll be able to do group fusions, or what I know them as special fusions from Shin Megami Tensei. The fun is not over yet. Another feature is sacrificing a persona to acquire a skill card that'll allow you to use that skill on a persona. This feature made building the best persona so much easier than SMT. You can also get powerful weapons, accessories, or armor through the itemized feature. For those who love a particular persona but you're afraid it'll fall off as you progress through the game, then the gallows feature might tickle your fancy. Just like the itemized feature, you could sacrifice a persona you no longer need to gain experience from them, so you can level up the new persona you acquire. I absolutely love the features of the Velvet Room, and there are a few more, but I'll leave that for you to discover as you play. Another mechanic that may be taken for granted is traits. Traits are passive that either increase your damage, reduce resource costs, and much more. While this may seem common in RPG games, Shin Megami Tensei doesn't have this, and it's something I came to love. Later in the game, you get some spicy traits that literally give you the blueprint on how you should be building that persona. If you have a favorite persona, then you can make it however you like, as most traits can be passed on from one persona to another. Persona 5's RPG mechanics were on point, and I hope Shin Megami Tensei takes some notes for their next game. Now that we've gone over combat and the Velvet Room, let's go over another core system in this game. At the top left will be a date and the time of day. You'll either love or hate this mechanic, as it made me very overwhelmed and stressed out as a completionist. Why do you ask? That's because you have 2 windows in the game to do these time slot events to progress your confidence level, social skills, and weekly exclusive events. Each of these are beneficial with none of them being bad. Let me give you an example. On Sunday, they sell a smoothie that raises a random social stat, but it doesn't take up a time slot. The church only sells item on this day, but it doesn't take up a time slot. The Sun Confidant only shows up on Sunday evening, so that slot is almost always taken up by them. So that means realistically, you only have the afternoon to spend with another Confidant, leveling a social skill, or doing a timed event. To add fuel to the fire, some Confidants only show up 2 times a week during the evenings, so if you had the main story take up that one time they showed up, then you're caught between deciding to do theirs or the Sunday exclusive Confidant. To make matters even worse, some main story events take up the whole day, so it may skip Sunday completely, meaning all those exclusive Sunday events are just never seen, putting you a whole week behind. On top of that, the game sometimes forces you to go to sleep because for some reason, you can't do anything in your room but sleep. It was baffling why they even gave you the option to walk around when nothing was available to do, and all I wanted to do was craft some infiltration tools or study to increase my knowledge, but Mona said no. That was my biggest complaint about the game, and I have one other one. There's a place called Mementos that has multiple floors as you progress through the game, and each time the layout is different, like a roguelike game. Jose is the NPC down here who will reward you for collecting flowers and stamps. Stamps are used to increase the amount of XP and money you earn in battle, while the item buff increases how much you obtain on the field. Flowers let you buy powerful items to help you in and out of combat. So what's the complaint, you ask? Whenever you leave Mementos, you lose all your flowers, meaning you have to collect them again. I understand this was done for balancing purposes, as Jose's selection becomes better as you progress through the game. I feel like a simple fix to this was to have Jose at the exit of Mementos, so that way you could spend your flowers before leaving. This not only keeps the balancing intact, but takes away the issue with having to find him every time. Obviously, these issues I bring up are for the minority, because after 200 hours of gameplay, I was satisfied with my purchase, and I could only imagine that others would as well, because this game is a masterpiece, and it gets a 10 out of 10. I highly recommend this game to anyone who likes a turn-based RPG game, because Persona 5 Royal has a very fun combat system, amazing story, and a wonderful soundtrack. I found myself wanting more, but unfortunately I did everything you could on a fresh file. For anyone who still doesn't get the thumbnail after my rating, I regret playing this game 2 years after release, because when I was streaming this, chat spoiled some stuff I'd rather have found out on my own. I'm so excited for Persona 6, so if this video brought you value, please leave a like and consider subscribing to see more, as I play a wide array of RPG games and I break them down just like this. Until the next video, I'll see ya.